Heather, step over here for a second. The truck, the money, October 1st, 93.
This is Heather Catherine Tallchief, a former Loomis Armored car driver who spent 12 years as a fugitive after stealing nearly $3 million. She didn't get caught. She walked in and turned herself in.
12 years, Heather, nearly $3 million.
I'm so glad.
12 years ago, Heather Tallchief walked away from a Loomis armored truck on the Las Vegas Strip with nearly $3 million in cash. She vanished. So did her boyfriend. So did the money. What you just watched is the moment she came back. Not in handcuffs. Not in a perp walk. She walked herself through the front doors of the U.S. District Court in Las Vegas on September 15, 2005, and surrendered to the United States Marshals. After 12 years on the FBI's most wanted list, after 12 years living in Amsterdam under a stolen name, after raising a 10-year-old son who had never known her by her real one, she would be sentenced to 63 months in federal prison. She would owe nearly $3 million in restitution, and the man who pulled her into it would still be out there. This is how a 21-year-old armored truck driver became one of the most successful fugitives in modern federal history, and why she ended up turning herself in. Before we get into how this happened, I have to ask you something. Could you live with a secret for 12 years? 12 full years pretending to be someone else in a foreign country, raising a child under a fake name, knowing the FBI has your face on a most wanted poster. Tell me in the comments how long you think you would last. And if you are new here, hit subscribe. This channel covers the cases that don't get the coverage they deserve, and this one has been quietly waiting to be told for 30 years. Heather Catherine Tallchief was born in 1972 in Buffalo, New York. Her father worked construction. Her mother worked as a receptionist at a doctor's office on the city's east side. The family lived in a small two-bedroom on a block of identical small two-bedrooms in a neighborhood where the snowplows came late and the property tax bills came early. Heather was the quiet child in a loud family. Teachers at her elementary school remembered her as the kind of student who finished her assignments before anyone else, then stared out the window for the rest of the period. A second-grade report card called her exceptionally bright, but withdrawn. A fourth-grade teacher wrote that she was easy to overlook in a room full of personalities. She rode a hand-me-down bicycle through the neighborhood every summer until she outgrew it. She read constantly. Her mother kept a stack of library cards because Heather kept losing them in the bottom of her backpack. She had two close friends in high school, both of whom would later tell reporters they could not believe what she became. She graduated from a public high school in Buffalo in 1990. She worked summers as a waitress at a diner on Niagara Falls Boulevard. She made tips in singles and quarters and kept them in a peanut butter jar on her dresser. By her senior year, she had decided she wanted to be a nurse. She enrolled in a nursing program at a community college and lasted 3 semesters. The reasons she gave at the time were practical. The tuition was rising. The hospital clinical rotations were brutal. Her family could not afford to keep her enrolled. The reason she gave later, in interviews after her surrender, was different. She said she felt invisible in Buffalo. She said she had never been further west than Cleveland. She said she wanted to start over, somewhere where no one knew her name. In 1992, she moved to Las Vegas. She was 20 years old. She had a duffel bag, $600 in cash, and the phone number of a girl she had worked with at the diner who had moved out west the year before. She found a studio apartment off Maryland Parkway, 2 miles east of the Strip. She paid $400 a month in rent. She got a job as a hostess at a steakhouse and a second job as a security guard at a parking garage. The security job was the one that mattered. It was through that job that she heard Loomis Armored was hiring drivers. She applied in the spring of 1993. The company was looking for couriers, not gun hands. The training emphasized procedure over force. Drivers were taught how to log manifests, how to coordinate handoffs at casino drop points, how to maintain radio contact with dispatch. They were taught that the cash they carried did not belong to them, did not belong to Loomis, and did not belong to the casinos. It belonged to banks. Specifically, in Las Vegas, it belonged to institutions like Bank of America and Nevada Federal Credit Union, which contracted Loomis to move it. Heather completed the training in May of 1993. Her training evaluation described her as attentive, punctual, and uncomplaining. It noted that she showed no signs of the bravado common in younger applicants. A supervisor wrote that she did not draw attention to herself, in a good way. She was 21 years old. She was making $12.50 an hour. She was driving a vehicle that carried, on a busy weekend, more cash than she would earn in 100 lifetimes. And then she met Roberto Solis. He was 36 years older than she was. He used the name Julius Gabriel Sauve when they met. He told her he was a poet. He told her he had traveled. He told her he understood what it felt like to be invisible. He did not tell her he had served nearly 2 decades in federal prison for murdering a Loomis armored truck driver during an attempted robbery in San Francisco in 1969. He did not tell her that he had escaped from that prison, been recaptured, and only recently been released. He did not tell her that he had spent every year of his confinement studying armored car routes, casino cash schedules, and the federal sentencing guidelines that governed both. She did not ask. He did not offer. By the summer of 1993, they were living together. By the early fall, he had a plan. To understand what Heather Tallchief did, you have to understand how a Las Vegas armored truck route actually works. Or rather, how it worked in 1993, before GPS tracking, before vehicle telematics, before the surveillance density that defines the modern strip. Loomis Armored Inc. operated as a contracted cash carrier for nearly every major property on the Las Vegas Strip. The casinos generated cash at a rate that defied normal banking. Slot machines paid out in coins. Tables paid out in chips that were redeemed for cash. ATMs on every floor of every property needed to be restocked, sometimes twice a day on holiday weekends. The money flowed in 2 directions at all hours. A standard armored truck crew in 1993 consisted of 3 people: a driver, who stayed with the vehicle, and 2 messengers, who exited at each stop to move bags of cash between the truck and the customer location. The driver was responsible for the vehicle, the radio, and the route. The messengers were responsible for the physical custody of the cash during transfers. Procedure required the truck to be locked at all times when the driver was alone inside. Procedure required the driver to remain in radio contact with dispatch throughout the route. Procedure required the driver to follow the pre-cleared route between stops, with no deviations. What procedure did not require, and what procedure could not enforce, was a second set of eyes on the driver. When the messenger stepped out of the truck to walk into a casino, the driver was alone. With the truck, with the money, with nothing but a radio and a logbook, and the assumption that an employee of Loomis Armored would behave like an employee of Loomis Armored. The casinos themselves did not watch the trucks. The casinos watched the cash floor. The valet parking areas where armored trucks parked were considered service zones. Security cameras in 1993 covered the entrances and the gaming floor and the cashier cages. They did not cover the loading docks. They did not cover the side approaches. They did not cover, in any meaningful way, the unmarked sedan parked across the lot, waiting for the truck to be left unattended. Loomis dispatchers tracked their trucks through radio check-ins. A driver was expected to call in at each stop and again at each departure. If a driver failed to check in, dispatch would attempt to raise them on the radio. If radio contact failed, dispatch would send a supervisor. The supervisor would arrive, on average, 20 to 40 minutes later. 20 to 40 minutes, in a city where the airport sat 15 minutes from the Strip. In a city where a chartered plane could be on the runway in under an hour. Heather Tallchief did not figure any of this out herself. She did not study the routes. She did not analyze the response windows. She did not memorize the dispatch protocols. Roberto Solis did. He had been studying this exact system for almost a quarter century. He had killed a man trying to exploit it once before. He had spent 2 decades thinking about what he had done wrong the first time. The second time, he decided, he would not be the one inside the truck. October 1st, 1993, a Friday. The weather in Las Vegas that morning was clear and 72 degrees. The Strip was busy with the kind of pre-weekend tourist traffic that filled every casino floor by noon. Heather Tallchief reported for her shift at the Loomis Depot at 6 in the morning. She signed her name on the daily duty roster. She drew her uniform jacket from her locker. She picked up the keys to truck number 317. Her crew that morning consisted of 2 messengers. The route assignment was the standard Strip ATM restocking route, with Circus Hotel and Casino as one of the first stops. The truck was loaded at the depot with nearly $3 million in U.S. currency. The money belonged to Bank of America and to Nevada Federal Credit Union. The Loomis manifest accounted for every bundle. At approximately 8:15 a.m., Tallchief pulled the armored truck into the valet parking area of the Circus Hotel and Casino. The 2 messengers exited the vehicle. They carried with them the cash cassettes for the casino's ATM machines. Their assignment was to walk the cassettes to the machines, load them, and return to the front of the casino for pickup. Tallchief was supposed to drive to the front of the casino. She was supposed to wait for the messengers to complete the ATM-stocking. She was supposed to pick them up and continue the route. She did not do any of those things. Instead, she put the armored truck in gear and drove out of the Circus valet area. She did not call dispatch. She did not respond to the radio. She drove the truck through the side streets behind the Strip to a rented garage where Roberto Solis was waiting. The garage door closed behind the truck. Inside, Solis was waiting with a second vehicle. Together, they unloaded the cash. Bundles of 20s, bundles of 50s, bundles of hundreds. Nearly $3 million in U.S. currency, transferred from the back of a Loomis armored truck to the trunk of a private vehicle in under 30 minutes. The Loomis truck was abandoned in the garage. Tallchief and Solis drove from the garage directly to a small private airfield. A chartered plane was waiting on the tarmac. The flight plan was filed for Denver. Back at Circus, the 2 messengers walked out of the casino at approximately 8:45 a.m. They stood in the valet area. They looked for their truck. They did not see it. They tried to raise Tallchief on the radio. She did not answer. They walked to a casino phone and called Loomis Dispatch. By the time the dispatcher confirmed the truck was missing, by the time a supervisor was sent to Circus, by the time anyone at Loomis Armored understood what had happened, the chartered plane carrying Heather Tallchief and Roberto Solis was already in the air over Nevada. It would land in Denver. From Denver, the trail would go cold. From Denver, federal investigators would spend years trying to reconstruct what came next, and they would never fully succeed. What is known, from Tallchief's own later admissions, is this. She and Solis split up at some point after Denver. She made her way to Europe. She settled in Amsterdam. She obtained a fraudulently issued passport in the name of Donna Marie Eaton. She rented an apartment. She found work as a hotel maid. She found other cash jobs that did not require a social security number or a tax filing. In 1994, less than a year after the heist, she gave birth to a son. She named him Dylan. On his birth certificate, his mother's name was Donna Marie Eaton. Dylan grew up speaking Dutch and English. He attended a Dutch school. His friends were Dutch. His teachers thought his mother was American but had emigrated to Amsterdam for personal reasons. They did not know her real name. He did not know her real name. For 11 years, Heather Tallchief lived a quiet, careful, almost boring life under a name that was not hers. She paid her rent. She bought her groceries. She walked her son to school. She did not draw attention. She did not contact her family in Buffalo. She did not contact anyone she had ever known before October 1st, 1993. She did not know where Solis was. She did not know where the money was. By her own later account, she had seen very little of it herself. We are about to get into how she came back. Before we do, take a second and hit subscribe if you have made it this far. The most interesting part of this story is the part nobody expected. She was not caught. She was not tracked down. She came home on her own. And what she said at the courthouse on September 15, 2005, is the part that makes this case different from every other federal armored car heist on record. The catalyst in the Heather Tallchief case is not what investigators discovered. It is what Heather Tallchief decided. For 12 years, the FBI had her on the most wanted list. Her photograph circulated through field offices in Las Vegas, San Francisco, Denver, and overseas legal attaché posts in Europe. Interpol had a notice. The U.S. Marshals Service had a fugitive file. Loomis Armored had filed an insurance claim. The case had moved from active investigation to cold case to occasional retrospective in true crime magazines. Federal investigators believed, by 2005, that Tallchief was probably alive. They believed she was probably in Europe. They believed she had probably split off from Solis years earlier. They had no specific leads. They had no working address. They had no surveillance product. She found them. In the spring of 2005, Heather Tallchief contacted a Las Vegas defense attorney named Robert Axelrod. The contact was made through an intermediary. She told Axelrod, through that intermediary, that she wanted to come home and surrender herself to federal authorities. She told him she had a 10-year-old son. She told him she was tired of hiding. She told him she wanted her son to have a chance at a normal life that did not require him to grow up in a country that was not his, under a name that was not his mother's. Axelrod began the process of arranging a controlled surrender. The negotiations took months. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Nevada had to be brought in. The FBI had to be brought in. The U.S. Marshals had to be brought in. The terms had to be set. The charges had to be reviewed. The travel had to be coordinated. On September 13, 2005, Heather Tallchief boarded a commercial flight from Amsterdam to the United States. She traveled alone. Her son Dylan, then 11 years old, remained in Amsterdam in the care of people she trusted. She did not tell him, before she left, exactly what she was about to do. She would explain it later. She landed at McCarran International Airport on September 14, 2005. She was met by her attorney. She did not stay in a hotel. She stayed in a private location coordinated through her legal team. On the morning of September 15, 2005, 12 years and 2 weeks after she drove a Loomis armored truck out of the Circus valet area, Heather Tallchief walked into the U.S. District Court in Las Vegas and surrendered to the United States Marshals Service. She did not have to do it. The federal authorities did not have her. They did not have a lead on her. They were not closing in. She turned herself in for one reason. She wanted to be Heather Tallchief again. She wanted her son to know her by her real name, and she wanted to be done. The 1993 investigation into the Loomis heist had, by 2005, been gathering dust for over a decade. But it had not been closed. It had not been forgotten. The case file in the FBI's Las Vegas field office ran to several thousand pages. The original investigators had retired. New agents had inherited it. The file had been digitized, indexed, and cross-referenced with every armored car robbery on the West Coast in the years since. When Tallchief surrendered, the file came back to life. Federal investigators sat with her in a series of debriefings in the weeks after her surrender. They walked her through every detail. The pre-shift roster at the Loomis Depot, the route assignment for October 1st, 1993, the 2 messengers she had dropped at Circus, the radio she had refused to answer, the garage where she had met Solis, the chartered plane to Denver. They walked her through the years in Amsterdam, the passport in the name of Donna Marie Eaton, obtained through a contact she identified to investigators, the hotel work, the other cash jobs, the birth of her son, the places she had lived, the people who had known her under a false name. They walked her through what she knew about Solis. She knew very little. She told investigators that she and Solis had separated within the first year after the heist. She told them she did not know where he had gone. She did not know what name he was using. She did not know how much of the money he still had. She had taken very little of it herself. The investigators believed her. The forensic financial review of her years in Amsterdam supported her account. She had lived modestly. She had worked cash jobs. She had not, in any documented way, been spending the proceeds of a $3 million federal bank embezzlement. The smoking gun in the case, when it came time to charge it, was not a piece of physical evidence the FBI had recovered. It was Heather Tallchief's own guilty plea memorandum. In that document, filed with the court as part of her plea agreement, she admitted in operational detail what she had done on October 1, 1993. She admitted to driving the truck. She admitted to meeting Solis. She admitted to the garage, the unloading, the chartered plane. She admitted to the passport. She admitted to the 12 years. Without that document, the federal case would have been substantially harder to make. The original 1993 evidence was thin. The truck had been recovered. The messengers had testified. The route logs had been preserved. But the actual chain of custody on the cash, the movement from Las Vegas to Denver, to wherever it ultimately went, existed only in Tallchief's memory. She gave them what she had, which was the operational record of the heist, but very little of the financial trail after. Solis, with most of the money, had vanished. He has stayed vanished. There is no confrontation in the Heather Tallchief case in the way the term usually applies. No officer kicked down a door. No detective sat across from her in an interrogation room while she insisted she did not know what they were talking about. No surveillance team closed in. The closest thing to a confrontation was the morning of September 15, 2005, on the steps of the U.S. District Court in Las Vegas. She arrived with her attorney, Robert Axelrod. She wore a dark suit. Her hair was pulled back. She was 33 years old. She did not look like a woman who had spent 12 years on the FBI's most wanted list. She looked like a woman who worked in an office and had not slept well the night before. A small group of reporters had been alerted. They stood on the courthouse steps. As she approached the doors, one of them called out a question. Reporter: "Heather, why are you coming back?" She stopped. She looked at the reporter. She spoke clearly. "Tallchief, I truly feel this is the right thing to do." That was the sentence she gave the press. That was the sentence that ran in the Las Vegas Sun the next morning. That was the sentence that ran on the national wires. Her attorney spoke after her. He described her, to the reporters, as an impressionable 21-year-old who blindly followed a persuasive older boyfriend. He said she had been tired of hiding. He said she wanted her son to have a chance at a normal life. She went through the courthouse doors. She surrendered to the United States Marshals Service. She was processed, fingerprinted, and booked. Her booking photograph showed a woman with tired eyes and a closed expression. It was the first official photograph the federal government had taken of her in 12 years. She did not make a statement to investigators that day beyond what was required for processing. She invoked her right to counsel for all substantive questioning. The debriefings would come later, in the weeks before her plea. She was held in federal custody pending sentencing. She would not return to Amsterdam. She would not see her son Dylan again until after she was released from federal prison, more than 4 years later. The federal charges, when they were formalized, totaled 3 counts. 1 count of bank embezzlement, 1 count of credit union embezzlement, reflecting the fact that the cash inside the Loomis truck included monies belonging to Bank of America and to Nevada Federal Credit Union, and 1 count of possession of a fraudulently obtained passport, reflecting the Donna Marie Eaton document she had used in Amsterdam. Tallchief pleaded guilty to all 3 counts. There was no trial. The guilty plea memorandum was filed with the court and made part of the public record. It is the document that, more than any other, tells the story of October 1st, 1993, in the defendant's own words. Sentencing was scheduled for March 30th, 2006, before Chief U.S. District Judge Philip Pro of the District of Nevada. The sentencing hearing was a measured proceeding. The U.S. Attorney's Office presented the government's case. They emphasized the scale of the loss, nearly $3 million, most of it still missing. They emphasized the duration of the fugitive period, 12 years. They emphasized that Solis remained at large. Tallchief's defense presented in mitigation. They emphasized her age at the time of the offense, 21. They emphasized her cooperation. They emphasized that she had voluntarily surrendered, that the government had not located her, that she had ended her own fugitive status. They emphasized her son. She spoke briefly at her own sentencing. She apologized to Loomis Armored. She apologized to the banks. She apologized to the messengers who had been left standing in the Circus valet area on the morning of October 1st, 1993. She apologized to her family in Buffalo, who had spent 12 years not knowing whether she was alive. Judge Philip Pro then addressed the courtroom. He acknowledged the unusual nature of the case. He acknowledged that voluntary surrender after 12 years was not a circumstance the federal sentencing guidelines were designed to anticipate. He acknowledged the cooperation. He acknowledged the apology. And he acknowledged that none of those things changed the underlying fact that nearly $3 million in federally insured deposits had been taken, that most of it had never been recovered, and that the integrity of the federal banking system depended on consequences when that happened. He sentenced her to 63 months in federal prison. He ordered restitution in the amount of $2,994,083.83. He noted, for the record, that the restitution order would attach to her income for the remainder of her life and would, in all likelihood, never be satisfied. Heather Tallchief served her sentence. She was released in 2010 after approximately 5 years in federal custody. She returned eventually to Amsterdam, where her son had continued to live during her incarceration. The restitution order remains substantially uncollected. The federal warrant for Roberto Ignacio Solis remains active. He remains on the FBI's list of long-term fugitives. He was reported as 60 years old in 2005, which would make him in his early 80s today, if he is still alive. The nearly $3 million he is presumed to have left Las Vegas with on October 1st, 1993, has never been recovered. The Loomis truck, the one with the number 317 painted on its side, was returned to service. The garage where it had been hidden was eventually leased to a new tenant. The Circus Hotel and Casino is still operating. The valet area where 2 messengers stood at 8:45 on a Friday morning in October, waiting for a driver who was never going to come back, looks much the same as it did then. What you watched at the beginning of this video was the rarest kind of moment in federal law enforcement, a fugitive who came home. Not because she had to, because she chose to. This case was unusual, but the next case on the right side of your screen is one of the most disturbing institutional betrayals I have ever covered. Click it now.